Hey, I know this is different, but, stepping outside my comfort zone, talking about a new series, so I figured, might as well dress for the occasion. I showered and then I didn't brush my hair. I found the darkest shirt that I own. I didn't shave for a couple days, but I don't think that's noticeable. Oh, and luck smiled on me. I got sick, so now my voice is a bit deeper, so I can, better sound like Shadow. Oh, I also brought a gun. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Josh, you haven't covered anything in depth besides Mario, and you want to branch out by talking about the edgy Shadow game. Well, you gotta start somewhere, and this is as good of a place as any. I haven't played that many Sonic games. I first tried Frontiers a few years ago, played Adventure 2 last year, and that was where I decided that the Sonic games probably weren't for me. I don't know, I thought Frontiers was fine, and Adventure 2 was frustrating enough for me, especially Final Rush and Final Chase, that I decided that was probably a good time to try out other series instead. Fast forward to a couple of months ago, I saw that Sonic and Shadow Generations was half off. Despite my previous feelings towards Sonic, I'd heard this game was good. Like, really good. So I decided to bite the bullet and get it. I played Sonic Generations first, thought it was pretty enjoyable, had a good time, except for the final boss, that stunk. And then I booted up Shadow Generations and holy crap, this game is good. I had so much fun with this game. It also helped me to begin understanding why I wasn't grasping older games like Sonic Adventure 2. With Shadow Generations, I realized I get my biggest enjoyment out of these games and I treat individual stages more like arcade games. And what do you do with an arcade game? You constantly replay it, trying for a faster time or a better score. I hadn't really been doing that with previous Sonic games. The only time I really did that was with Pyramid Cave in Sonic Adventure 2. I don't know why. I really liked that level. That one was really fun. It was the only one that stuck with me in that game. So, if I hadn't been doing this with previous Sonic games, of course, I was bound to find myself underwhelmed. But, on top of this formula to, work, the stages actually have to be fun to play through, and luckily Shadow Generations has that in spades. The level design in these stages is especially well done, and I can't believe I'm saying this about a Sonic game. I have almost 100% completed it. After having such a fun time playing as Shadow, I decided that now is the perfect time to shoot myself in the foot by playing as Shadow. But to better understand this game, take your mind back to 2005. Revenge of the Sith just released in theaters, a rock billions of miles away is discovered in space that will lead to Pluto becoming a dwarf planet, and Sega Studios USA finishes development of a game so edgy, so drastically devastating and destructive. It's given the ESRB rating of E10+. Truly, only the West could create a game so depraved and lacking in morals. To show you just a taste of this disgusting behavior, this is the sound that plays when selecting options on the menu. Despicable. Anyways, meet Shadow, a being created as the ultimate life form by Gerald Robotnik to help cure the disease carried by his granddaughter, Maria. In Sonic Adventure 2, he worked with Gerald's grandson, Dr. Eggman, for a while before learning that near the end of his life, Gerald absolutely lost it when Maria was killed and Shadow was shot back to Earth. So he programmed the space station he was living on to basically turn into a Death Star and destroy the planet. Normal things. Shadow helps Sonic and friends deactivate the space station, and Shadow falls to Earth in the process. Later on, Shadow is found in Sonic Heroes, but he has amnesia of what happened in that game, and so do I, so that's not important. He also seems to have amnesia of what happened in Adventure 2, only remembering his own name and Maria's, so obviously, this is the perfect time for an alien invasion. Some squid-eye thing shows up and transmits a message from an alien called Black Doom, telling Shadow that the promised time is now, and to collect the 7 Chaos Emeralds for him, under the basis of, why not? Shadow heads to the first stage, Lestopolis. Our mission here is simple. You've played a Sonic game before, I assume. I don't know, I've only played like 4. Just go fast and get to the end, right? Well, it can be if you're boring. You see, Shadow offers something that Sonic never could, aside from guns, and that's free will. You see, while Sonic likes to hang out up here in the chaotic good section of this alignment chart that was really popular like, 10 years ago? Shadow is that annoying true neutral guy, which is really just an excuse to bounce between one corner of the charts and the next in a heartbeat. Thus, every stage has at least 2, but usually 3 missions that usually boil down to the hero mission, which is to help Sonic or whatever anthropomorphic animals in this stage, the normal mission for speedrunners, and the dark mission, which is to help Black Doom or Eggman. Let's take Lestopolis as our example. Hero mission, kill all the aliens.
Black creatures.
Sonic, you gotta stop calling them that. Normal mission, book it to the Chaos Emerald. And dark mission, kill all the soldiers. Incapacitate all the soldiers. We're already pushing the E10+ rating as it is. Depending on which enemies you take out will also fill the 2 different gauges on your screen. Doing dark actions like attacking gun forces and destroying property will fill the red meter, which will allow you to use Chaos Blast, basically a screen nuke. Super helpful if you're going on a dark route and need to take out a bunch of enemies at once. Fulfilling hero actions like killing aliens will fill the blue meter, which allows you to use Chaos Control, where Shadow just blitzes toward the end of the level until the meter depletes. Ironically, the good power is way more situational, and I find that it's more helpful in more neutral missions than it is hero missions, since most neutral missions are just speedruns. And more hero missions do require you to either clear out all evil enemies or collect certain items. Which mission you complete in Westompolis actually decides the next stage you will play in. Oh. This is the main gimmick of Shadow the Hedgehog. A basic playthrough of the game will probably take like 2 hours maximum, but the whole point of the game is not to play it once and call it quits. It's to keep going back and keep experiencing different routes, maybe play stages you already have before to improve your time. Otherwise, that E rank and Lost Impact stares at you and judges you forever. No, I'm not talking from personal experience. Stop looking at me like that. Where other Sonic games push you to play the exact same stage to learn and master it, Shadow incentivizes you to pursue alternate missions and thus unlock new stages to reach another of the game's 10 endings. I mean, you can still A-rank every mission if you want to, but that's 55 different missions to master, not including boss battles. I think my plan to get every ending and also route myself to make sure I play through every stage at least once is pretty tame in comparison, and it doesn't mean it's not going to take over 20 hours though. These game stages are fun, though they don't change much to accommodate for the variance in missions from speed through the level to the more thorough search and destroy missions. It feels like they either lean too hard in one way or the other, which makes missions like Lost Impact Neutral a bit of a slog when the whole thing is built for the hero mission to be a slower hunt for all the enemies. Luckily, the stages built for speed are more accommodating to the search and destroy missions, with multiple save points located throughout the stage that you can also teleport freely between as you discover them. Location overlap is also a bit odd in some ways. Due to this game being so reliant on diverging paths and the devs clearly wanting you to go to certain locations for the story, there are some locations that have multiple stages associated with them. Some are simply the story continuing to be told in that location, like Lethal Highway being a clear continuation of Westompolis, or Sky Troops just being Glyphic Canyon but in the sky. Some are clearly meant to be either an extremely similar area, or just the same area altogether, but are placed far enough away from each other that you can't play both in a single run, like Prison Island and Death Ruins both having this very intense jungle theming. Digital Circuit and Mad Matrix fall in a very similar vein, but you can actually play both of these stages in a single run, and I think technically they are two different computer worlds, so... And then there's the Ark. Oh, the Ark. You know how with other examples of overlap, I was offering a pair of stages as an example? Well, out of the game's 22 stages, 5 of them take place on the Ark. You got the Ark, the Doom, Space Gadget, Lost Impact, and Cosmic Fall. Oh, Cosmic Fall, we will get back to you later. Granted, the Ark does play a fairly important role in the overall story of the game, but this means that almost a quarter of this game's stages take place on the Ark. And as cool of a setting as it is, you're gonna see a lot of it if you go for all of this game's endings. And speaking of endings, let's talk about bosses. There are a handful of bosses sprinkled throughout the different stages. You got Black Bull, Eggbreaker, and Blue Falcon Heavy Dog. These two are technically different, but look and fight very similarly. Eggbreaker was my favorite to fight out of these three, usually because the arena gives you a way to defeat it in about 10 seconds. Heavy Dog was the most comical because you can technically defeat it like this if you want an E rank. Again, because of routing in this game, it's possible to run into these fights multiple times. Usually Eggbreaker, since that boss has 3 possible encounters while Black Bull has 2, and Blue Falcon and Heavy Dog have 1 each. These are fine, nothing crazy. The only thing to really note here is that during boss fights, Chaos Control simply slows down time instead of speeding Shadow towards the ending, since, well, there is no ending outside of defeating the boss. But these guys are simply the appetizers. The main course is the final bosses. Now, I want you to guess, out of this game's 10 different endings, how many final bosses does the game have? I'm going to start counting down. You tell me when to stop. There's 3. There's only 3. On the far edges of the hero and dark routes, the final boss is either Black Doom, the alien that really wants Shadow to join his side for some reason, or Sonic and Diablon, which is piloted by this cool looking guy who is the only known human allowed to say Miles swears in the Sonic universe. This game has an elite club of cussers, and despite my best efforts, I clearly am not cool enough to be in that. Almost all the neutral final bosses are Eggman and his Egg Dealer. While the other final boss fights are fairly well balanced and fun to run through, the Egg Dealer gets my vote for favorite boss in this game because for me it encapsulates the vibe of Shadow the Hedgehog, the game, as a whole. Now, we all know that Sonic games are mainly for children. Not saying you are a child if you play these games, but children are definitely the main audience. You're not going to dive into these great, complex, epic stories. Most of these are about Sonic and friends working together to save the world from a man who, anatomically, should not be able to stand. But there are so many points in this game where it takes itself so seriously. When you fight against Black Doom, you're fighting back against your so-called destiny and forging your own path. When you fight Sonic and Diablon, you are actively betraying a world and group of friends that really do want the best for you. And then most neutral paths, you show up to face Eggman and he's pulled out his magnum opus, his greatest achievement, a battle robot built on the concept of gambling, and is also built in a chance to give Shadow specifically an insane power boost to defeat him. No, just a bit of a tonal whiplash there. Eggman's little toy laser weapons are part of the arsenal you can pick up, sitting right next to alien weapons that feel like they fit pretty well in Halo, and actual pistols and rifles. Black Doom tries to convince Shadow that he belongs with his army, and when that doesn't work, he tries to force it anyway. Sonic and Co. try to use the power of friendship to sway Shadow back to the light. Eggman shows up, Shadow asks him if he's actually a robot clone of the original Shadow, and all of a sudden Eggman understands the concept of gaslighting. It just feels like this game was meant to be way more serious and then reined itself in at last minute for a lower age rating. Probably because that's what actually happened, but that's besides the point. Anyway, each of these endings plays out a little bit differently from each other. Starting from Most Evil, Ending 1, Shadow defeats Sonic and destroys the world. Ending 2, Shadow betrays Black Doom and assumes command of his army. Ending 3 is just Ending 1, but Shadow says he'll enslave the world instead of destroying it. Ending 4, Shadow kills Eggman. Ending 5, Shadow kills Eggman, but also believes himself to be a robot copy superior to the original Shadow. Ending 6, which is Ending 5, but he also decides to go full Terminator with Omega. Ending 7, this is one of my personal favorites by the way, Shadow defeats Eggman on the Ark, banishes him, and declares the Ark a sacred space that he will now protect and no one else is allowed to enter. I think that's cool. Ending 8, Shadow blames himself for everything that has gone wrong on the Ark and since. Vector tries to talk Shadow out of ending it all, but he does a pretty bad job of it. Ending 9, Shadow helps Sonic all the way until the end and then turns on him, claiming that as the more powerful Hedgehog, only he can remain. And Ending 10, Shadow is a good boy and helps Sonic throughout the whole game. Basically what you expect from a normal Sonic game. Some of these are really solid endings, some are pretty meh, and some are cool, but only if you play very specific stages to show cutscenes on why Shadow would even be in that headspace. Again, a drawback of the wildly different routes you can take to achieve the exact same ending is that some flow way better than others. It didn't stop them from naming every single route in the game though. Yeah, after finishing a run of Shadow the Hedgehog, Shadow says, "This is who I am." Credits roll. If it's a new ending, you unlock a new special weapon to use in future playthroughs, and if it's a new route, that is added to the library section. Each of these 326 routes are named, and some of them are really generic, some sound pretty cool, and some are way too philosophical for me to appreciate. Archimedes and the tortoise, what the heck? So I think one will just play all the cutscenes that triggered in that run, probably to help you understand the meaning behind the name of the route. Again, some of these routes make Shadow seem pretty stupid, especially the ones where you skip Iron Jungle, where Shadow learns of all the robot clones, and then play Lava Shelter, where both endings have Shadow proclaim himself a robot after Eggman makes the claim exactly like one time. Now, you may be asking yourself, with all of these endings, which one is canon in the very strict and never-changing Sonic timeline? Don't worry, I got you. The answer? None of these, that's for sure. After reaching every single ending in the game, a new option will appear in the menu. Last Story. Selecting it will show a cutscene where Shadow confronts Black Doom with all the other hero characters and Eggman for some reason, showing up a few minutes later. The game is very vague on which path this segment is supposed to follow, but it feels pretty obvious that it's supposed to be a mainly hero playthrough. Now I'm going to cheat a little bit and provide exposition, though if you played every single ending to get to this part, you should already know this anyway. Through various cutscenes and story paths, you learn that Gerald Robotnik was initially unsuccessful in creating an ultimate life form to help him cure Maria's deadly disease. That is when Black Doom showed up in his comet and proposed to deal with the Doctor. He provides some of his own powerful DNA to help the Doctor's experiments on the condition that this new creation would serve Black Doom when he returned in 50 years to help with his conquest of Earth. And for some reason, Gerald agrees with this, and that's where Shadow comes from. Apparently, the military commander spent some time on the Ark as a child and witnessed part of this exchange, and so that's why he has it out for Shadow on sight. I don't know, this whole exchange looks pretty funny to me. That's an alien, and that's a hedgehog! Oh! The reason Black Doom wanted Shadow to get the Chaos Emeralds was so he could use them to teleport his warship within the Earth's atmosphere, since it wouldn't survive a normal entry. Black Doom takes all the Chaos Emeralds, teleports the warship, and everyone else is frozen due to paralysis gas the warship is now emitting into the atmosphere. Here, Black Doom makes what I think the writers are trying to make this grand reveal that the inhabitants of this planet will become the new fuel source for Black Doom's species. I don't know, I think it was already heavily implied that bad things would happen if the aliens won, but anyway, Black Doom leaves his babies to nibble on everyone's toes, and then Shadow shakes off the paralysis. How? Well, because he's the ultimate life form. Duh. This triggers the true final level, the Last Way. It's basically the other two Black Comet levels strung together in a final gauntlet, and it's nothing else too crazy. The only really new thing here is some sections absolutely requiring Chaos Control to progress, and the game gives you infinite enemies to do so. Once you reach Black Doom, he simply paralyzes Shadow again until a bee punches a computer in the arc. You know, that's prone to happen sometimes, which somehow triggers a message from Gerald 50 years ago. You know, also, these things happen. This message also plays in the comment for convenience. I don't know what to tell you. Gerald basically tells Shadow, "Hey buddy, sorry I made that deal with Space Devil to create you, but I did make you the ultimate life form, so you got like plot armor and stuff, so you should probably stop letting him paralyze you. Also use my legally distinct Death Star to blow up his warship instead of the Earth." Then Maria shows up and basically says, "Yeah, what Grandpappy said." And that gives Shadow the power to break the paralysis again and miss Black Doom by a mile. Luckily, he forgets the Chaos Emerald, so Shadow goes super. I Am All of Me starts blasting, which is like just peak early 2000s Edge. It is awesome. And it's time to fight the true final boss, which is really just the devil. Like most super fights in the Sonic franchise, which I'm now realizing I've never explained a super Sonic fight, you can fly and are technically invincible, but your rings will slowly deplete over time, and if you run out, you lose the super form and thus the fight. You also now have access to Chaos Spear, and you should make sure to use it to pop these balloons for more rings every now and then. Devil Doom's weak point is his eye, which will hop between its two different heads as he gets hit, so for maximum damage, you need to charge your Chaos Spear attack. The only hiccup I really had with this fight was that I didn't understand that I needed to charge the attack until Shadow says, "Chaos?" So all the shots I was firing off that I thought were charged were in reality just normal shots. Oops. But once you defeat Devil Doom, Shadow uses Chaos Control to move the warship back into space, then destroys it with the Arc's laser. Everyone celebrates, and Shadow finally lets go of his past. He will definitely never have to deal with any of this emotional baggage ever again. And that is Shadow the Hedgehog. My thoughts? Yeah, it's pretty alright. It's an ambitious concept, especially from a game made in the early 2000s, but for its fun ideas, the game certainly does feel rushed. Especially if you want to access the true final boss, you get to see how much content is simply repeated in other routes. The most egregious for me being the boss is being copy-pasted with slightly different arenas. As much fun as I have blitzing Egg Breaker and Egg Dealer, they are the biggest offender of this by far. The other final boss is close behind. Some stages are really good, the Glyphic Canyon Skytrips combo being my personal favorites, and I gotta hand it to Westopolis. For a stage that you need to play 10 different times for the true ending, all the missions are pretty fun and easy to do. Circus Park, much like Eggman in general, feels like serious tonal whiplash, especially if you play it right after Lethal Highway. And as much as I like the theming of the Arc levels, they do feel like some of the poorer stages of the game. Cosmic Fall by far being the worst. I don't know what it was with this stage, but I seriously struggled with it for both of the things I had to play it for. Again, the theming and tone behind the stage is epic. The arc is literally collapsing around you, and you need to take advantage of all the wreckage to beat the stage, but it just feels poorly executed. For me, the biggest mixed opinion I have on this game has to be the tonal indifference it has. You got the Eggman shenanigans I mentioned before, the weird theming of Circus Park compared to all other stages around it, and then you got this cutscene with Black Doom summoning Black Bull and berating Shadow for being disobedient. And meanwhile, Sonic's over here on the side cheering and gassing himself up during this very serious monologue. It's actually pretty funny. A big part of me wants to be more critical of this, but the rest of me finds this uncaring whimsy about how the story is told pretty endearing. If this was a movie, I'd have way more problems with it. I'm just one of those guys that hates the defense of poorly written movies with, "Oh, it's just a kid's movie." Bold take alert, but kids can in fact value character arcs and themes, but that's a tangent for another day. With games, as much as a good story can enhance already solid gameplay, that good gameplay needs to be a foundation to make the game enjoyable in the first place. So while I don't always condone it, Shadow the Hedgehog has solid enough gameplay base that I'd be willing to ignore the story and do another run every now and then. At the end of the day, I'm a Mario fan. You know I don't need to have convincing a story to validate good gameplay. I don't know where I'd rank it among all the Sonic games, but out of the games I've played, I actually think this is better than Frontiers and Sonic Adventure 2. I know, I'm breaking all kinds of hearts today. It's not really a slander against SA2 and Frontiers. If anything, it just shows that I need to go back and play those games again. Now that I have a better understanding of how one goes about playing Sonic games, who knows? Maybe my opinion on those will change. If so, that's a video for another day. But Shadow Generations definitely clears all these by a mile though, especially just story-wise. Again, nothing crazy, but it tells a simple and straightforward story, and it works. And then the gameplay is just so good. But I hope you've enjoyed this little foray outside of my usual content. I've been trying to vary my content a little bit right by now. Just try to show that I'm not just the Mario guy that talks about only the 3D Mario games. But I did also make a promise that I would talk about all the 3D Mario games, and I've only talked about 3 of them, so that certainly is coming. But you're gonna have to wait for that. Soonish. I plan to do Mario Galaxy 2 soon. But for now, I am Josh, and you have been watching my show, and until next time, keep on rocking.